-2 Fahrenheit. Perfect day to tell you how to build a free woodshed. Oh, it's a brisk morning. It's -2 Fahrenheit. So for the non-Americans watching, that would be, I think, -19 degrees Celsius. So it's a cool morning, definitely brisk. And these kind of mornings are where you really enjoy having a wood burner for your property. Now, as a wood burner, one of the very best things that you can do for your firewood is keep it undercover. And that's why I recommend everyone have a woodshed that burns wood. I think it's absolutely the way to go. And I discuss why in this video. Now, as you can see, the woodshed behind me is pretty sophisticated as far as woodsheds go. It's pretty good size. It holds 8 full cords of wood, but not everyone needs a woodshed like this. Maybe they don't need something this big. Maybe they don't need something that holds this much wood. Maybe they don't have the ability or the land to build such a large structure on their property. That's why in today's video, I'm going to give you some different options, most of them free or nearly free, and with materials that pretty much anyone can find locally. Oh, it feels a whole lot better in here by the wood stove than it does outside, but it's a little too hot to have these closed, so let me take those off and we'll get on with the video. And the first option that I'm going to talk about is using pallets. I know a lot of people that are watching probably already have thought about this. They probably already have used pallets themselves, but pallets are probably one of the best free building materials that you can find. The reason for that is they're usually always free. People give them away because they don't want them. A lot of things get shipped on pallets, and then they have all these pallets laying around that they have to get rid of, so they often will give them away. Another big reason is they're quality materials. They're made of usually 2x4s and maybe anywhere from a 1/2 inch to a 1 inch thick boards to connect the 2x4s together. Another big reason is you can get them in a variety of different sizes and shapes. You can get 40 by 40 inch pallets. You can get 8-foot long pallets. You can get softwood pallets. You can get hardwood pallets. You can get a lot of different types of pallets, which make them ideal because depending on what you're building, you can probably find pallets that are going to work perfect for your situation. So I'm willing to bet if you go to a local business that sells things that are shipped in pallets, maybe wood stoves or appliances or all these different things, you could probably find in the back of their shop or business a whole pile of pallets. And if you ask around to these businesses, you'll probably find a place that will give you free pallets that you could easily build something like a woodshed with. I've built woodsheds in the past with pallets. You can use them for the floor of the woodshed, and they'll keep the wood off the ground a few inches, keep the wood from rotting and sucking up the ground moisture. They allow the air to blow through the bottom of the piles. You can also use the pallets for the back of the woodshed, and it'll make something easier to stack against, and it's not as likely to topple over, which, by the way, if you're curious as to why wood piles often will topple over, please check out this video. But going back to the pallets, I'm going to say the one limiting factor with pallets is the roof structure. Now, obviously, if you have a small building and you're only spanning 6 feet deep, you could easily do that with an 8-foot pallet, have a little bit of an overhang on each end, and then cover the pallet with something waterproof like a tarp, billboard material, plastic, metal roofing, whatever it is you have on hand. But when you start getting into larger structures where your pallet won't span it and you need to join pallets together, it creates a hinge and it can be a weak point. So therefore, I wouldn't recommend using pallets for the roof of your structure unless it's small enough to span it with one pallet. Because like I said, when you get into snow-load areas like here in New England and you get heavy snow, it can easily cause that to collapse, and you don't want an unsafe structure, especially if you're going to be standing inside the structure at times. You don't want something that's going to collapse on you. And the thing that I would recommend you use for the roofs instead of pallets is going to be logs. I know some people are probably thinking logs are way too big and hard to work with. How can that possibly be? Well, consider this. Just like the pallets come in different sizes, shapes, species, weights, etc., so don't logs. You could have a 30-inch diameter log that's only 8 feet long, but it weighs a couple thousand pounds. Or you could have a 4 to 5-inch diameter log that's 12 or 16 feet long. You could easily pick it up by yourself and make a whole building out of it with roof rafters. I'm going to guess a 5-inch diameter log that's, say, 12 feet long is going to be just as strong probably as a 2x6 or maybe even a 2x8 that you're going to buy from the store and spend $15 to $20 on. Most of your dimensional lumber from your store is going to be KD or kiln dried. It's It's going to be a softwood species like fir, pine, spruce, something like that. So the beauty of logs is you can pick what type of log you want. If you know you want your structure extra strong, you could use a hardwood log, and you get something 5-6 inches around. I'm going to tell you what, that's going to be a real strong structure, and you can still quite easily attach something to it like metal roofing or a tarp. So the beauty with the logs is not only are they free, but again, they're very easy to customize as far as how big you cut it and how long you cut it. So if you don't have the land or the ability to cut logs, you may have to buy them from someone and spend a little bit of money, but I'm going to be willing to bet you could probably find them fairly reasonably priced. But with that said, I would recommend you look, obviously you want straight logs so they're easy to work with. I would probably take the bark off so there's a better chance of the moisture getting out and bugs not staying inside. And I would also recommend that if you're going to have this exposed to the weather, you'd want something like cedar or a wood that's naturally rot resistant. I wouldn't recommend using a wood that's going to rot quickly. But you could use any kind of wood, I think, if you're going to cover it with a tarp or billboard material, like I said earlier, or metal roofing. If your whole roof structure is going to be covered, then I think you could probably pretty much use any species of log. So the last material that's free that I'm going to discuss is actually a bunch of materials, but it's all going to be compressed into one category, and that's going to be reclaimed lumber. That could be nails, screws, that could be 2x4s, 2x8s, that could be sheets of plywood, it could be metal roofing, it could be a number of different things. The problem with this is you probably are going to either spend money buying it from someone or a lot of time disconnecting structures to get it. If you look at your local ads, whether it be Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, you could probably find people giving away free structures, maybe old garages or sheds or barns or something like that, with the condition usually that you have to take it all apart, which involves a ton of work. Usually you have to manually take these apart piece by piece. You have to pull all kinds of nails or take screws out. It's going to be a ton of work. And at the end of the day, a lot of people would probably rather just spend the money buying material. So it's either going to be a lot of work or you're going to have to spend money. There's really no getting around it. Now, if you can find free building materials like plywood or 2x4s or metal roofing without spending time or money, consider yourself very, very lucky, because most people can't do that. So that's going to be the last thing on the list. If you're willing to spend a little bit of elbow grease, you could probably get some real nice material. Like I know my woodshed that you saw in the beginning of this video. Originally, this woodshed was 3 bays. I ended up extending it to a 4th bay because I wanted more room. And the 4th bay is almost entirely reclaimed lumber from a deck that my neighbor actually took down. And it was a little bit of work to get the nails out and the screws, but it came out real nice. It matches the rest of the shed. So it's definitely possible to build a really nice structure with reclaimed lumber, but it is the most work or money out of all the items that I mentioned in today's video. I think building a little woodshed when you first start out with wood burning is probably the best idea. My idea of little would be maybe like 4 feet deep, 8 feet long, 6 feet high. But consider that that woodshed would still hold 1.5 full cords of wood, which is a lot of wood. And it's going to give you a really good idea whether or not woodshed's actually right for you. And if at the end of the season you don't want to burn wood anymore, or you don't like what the woodshed is, or you decide to do something different, no harm, no foul, you didn't spend a lot of money, you could take the structure apart. You could move it somewhere else, you could give the materials away or throw them away or do whatever you want to do. But maybe it is going to be for you, and then you decide, you know what? I do like this woodshed. It makes burning firewood a whole lot more enjoyable. And in the future, I want to build a nicer, bigger woodshed. But you didn't waste any money deciding whether a woodshed is right for you.